The combat in Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra is detailed, specialized, and unique. But like everything else in the Avatar world, the fighting styles evolved in the time between the two series. Here are the top combative differences between Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. The first one is pretty obvious. The abilities of benders changed. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, most benders stuck to their art's more traditional styles. Firebenders produced standard fire. Earthbender techniques involved mostly solid rocks or dirt. And most waterbenders drew strictly from obvious water sources nearby. But that's not to say there wasn't any innovation. The world was at war, and that meant many benders had to adapt to survive. It could be argued that this drove Toph to discover metal bending, Zuko to learn the rare skill of lightning bending, and Hama to develop blood bending, as well as the ingenuity to draw water from unexpected sources.
You've got to keep an open mind, Katara. There's water in places you never think about.
Fast forward to The Legend of Korra, to a time of peace for the world, and it's no surprise that these new techniques have grown much more common.
You're a bloodbender?
Very observant.
The collaboration between many cultures, coupled with the technological advancements, had made it possible for even the rarest of techniques to spread to the masses. And in turn, the increase of the number of benders with these abilities led to even more innovation.
A few years later, my father taught us to bloodbend any time, without the need of the full moon.
Which caused battles in Avatar Korra's time to be much less traditional, thanks to the abundance of benders with access to unique and unorthodox skills. And that leads us to our second difference: tradition. While breaking from tradition has allowed more modern benders to experiment with innovative new techniques, it also means that they drop some of that traditional expertise and power of the classic fighting styles.
You can teach me to redirect lightning?
With the rise of pro-bending as a major cultural focus, the benders of Republic City began to shift their style to something that more closely resembled boxing or MMA, with an emphasis on heavier attacks, primarily utilizing upper body strength. This is in sharp contrast to battles in Avatar Aang's time, which resembled various traditional styles of martial arts. The techniques often appear more nuanced, technical, and have a stronger focus on the traditional ideologies behind them.
Air is the element of freedom. The air nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns and found peace and freedom.
Take a look at the form used between two firebenders in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Compare that to this firebender from the time of Avatar Korra. While both styles are effective in their own right, the evolution that took place between them is overwhelmingly apparent. And this evolution can be applied to all three of the other elements. And even the practices of non-benders, with new technology making once rare and advanced techniques available to just about anyone.
Now anyone can hold the power of a chi blocker in their hand.
But that's not the only way technology changed the game of combat in the Avatar world. Because by the time of Avatar Korra, advanced technology was ubiquitous. Benders of the past had a need to focus most of their expertise on one-on-one bender versus bender combat, because that was the most common form of conflict. Yes, they were starting to see tanks, steamboats, and war balloons, but those technologies were still new, uncommon, and relatively unknown. But in the modern era, this kind of tech was everywhere. In fact, the tech had advanced significantly. So fighting against another bender was just as common as fighting some sort of machine. This forced the modern benders to adapt and diversify their fighting styles to defend against a unique variety of enemies. While past benders benefited from enthusiastically mastering one style of fighting, in the modern age, becoming more of a jack-of-all-trades is what paid off. Finally, maybe the most significant reason the combat between the two series can feel so different is due to perspective. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a story that's told largely through the eyes of Aang and his companions. And at 12 years old, Aang had the temperament of an airbending master, calm, wise, and deeply in touch with his spiritual self. Sure, there was room for improvement, but where he was truly lacking was in his bending skills. Aang felt the immense pressure of mastering 3 of the elements in under a year. So from his perspective, and the perspectives of those around him, the focus was bending, right down to the most nuanced techniques of each style. That's why Avatar: The Last Airbender feels like it emphasizes detailed and masterfully executed battles, because that was the focus of the main characters of Avatar. Main characters that we were meant to identify with. So, when it seems as if the combat in The Legend of Korra feels different than its predecessor, you have to examine the perspective of that series. With Korra as our main character, as well as those who teach or support her, the lens is different. From the beginning, Korra was already a natural when it came to bending.
I'm the Avatar! You gotta deal with it!
Having mastered 3 of the elements before the start of the series. While yes, she did have some initial trouble with airbending, that was a struggle born from a deeper shortcoming. Korra's lack of any connection whatsoever to her spiritual side. With such a strong grasp on bending skill, Korra never had to focus too much on that physical side of things. And as a result, neither do we, the audience. Instead, we see her struggling to master her own spirituality, allowing her to explore styles of combat, defense, and even peacemaking that we didn't get to see as much from Aang because he already had such a firm grasp on it. Even though Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra take different approaches to combat, those approaches complement each other, exploring 2 sides of the same coin, while showcasing the natural evolution of the culture. That level of detail and realism gives us a deeper connection with the world of Avatar and the characters that live in it.